If you had told me a cycle ago that the most revolutionary leap in galactic engineering would be led by a caffeine-fueled group from Sol 3, I'd have dismissed it as a bad joke. But here I am, penning a report not about some advanced civilization from the outer reach, but about humans, reckless, absurdly creative, and entirely unlike any species we've encountered. What they built shouldn't have worked. What they did should have failed. But none of that matters now, because everything we thought we knew about technological progress is about to change. I must confess, when the High Council first assigned me to study the newly discovered species from Sol 3, I thought it was a punishment for my previous controversial paper on quantum propulsion theory. How wrong I was. The humans arrived at our outpost in what they called a spaceship, though calling that collection of welded metal panels and repurposed engine parts of spaceship is like calling a Zorblax a pet. The vessel barely held together, its hull patched with materials that would make any respectable engineer in the Galactic Federation faint. "Welcome to Beta 9, I said through our universal translator, trying to hide my horror at their transportation choice. The human delegation consisted of 5 individuals, led by someone they called Captain Elric Hayes. "Thanks for having us, Doc," Hayes replied with what I would later learn was called a grin. The casual nature of the response made my secondary heart skip a beat. No proper greeting protocol, no formal acknowledgement of station authority. These humans were definitely primitive. My assistant, Nex 113, clicked her mandibles in disapproval. "Dr. KLR3N, should we really allow them to dock? Their vessel's radiation shielding appears to be made from cooking equipment." "That's right," another human, who introduced herself as Chief Talia Monroe, chimed in proudly. "That's a repurposed industrial microwave casing. Works better than the original shielding, if you ask me." I exchanged glances with my research team. The Pax 890 twins synchronized their tentacles in what we all recognized as our species' expression of disbelief, using cooking equipment and for radiation shielding. The absurdity during the initial survey, we discovered that humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. By Galactic Federation standards, they were infants playing with antimatter. Their understanding of basic physics seemed questionable at Boldest, and their approach to engineering was nothing short of barbaric. "Tell me, Captain Hayes," I asked, trying to maintain a professional tone while examining their ship's exterior. "How did you manage to stabilize the quantum field with these improvised components?" The captain turned to Chief Engineer Monroe, who pulled out what appeared to be a primitive data tablet. The screen was cracked, yet somehow still functional. "Well, funny story about that," she began, swiping through technical diagrams that made my third eye twitch. "We found that if you reverse the polarity of a standard washing machine spin cycle mechanism and connect it to a modified game console processor..." I stopped listening. This had to be a joke. The High Council couldn't seriously expect me to waste my time studying these tinkerers. My research station was meant for analyzing advanced civilizations, not watching primates play with scrap metal. "Dr. Zax," Nex 113 whispered, her voice modulator barely containing her amusement. "Should I prepare the standard technological assessment forms?" "Don't bother," I replied, watching as the humans began unloading their belongings. One of them had actually brought something called a coffee maker, insisting it was essential equipment. "I'll submit my preliminary report to the Council today. These humans clearly need at least another century of development before they're worth any serious scientific consideration." Oh, how monumentally wrong I was. If I had known then what I know now, I would have started taking far more detailed notes, because what happened next would change everything we thought we knew about technological advancement, engineering principles, and the sheer audacity of human ingenuity. But at that moment, watching them argue about where to plug in their coffee maker, all I could think was that this would be the most uneventful assignment of my career. The humans had other plans, though. They always have other plans. When Captain Hayes requested permission to visit our station's disposal facility, I assumed they were lost. The disposal sector was where we discarded outdated technology and failed experimental components. No self-respecting researcher would be caught dead in what humans might call a garbage dump. "Are you certain you want to go there?" I asked, my translation module struggling to convey my bewilderment. "The atmospheric processes in that sector are barely maintained." "Perfect," Chief Engineer Monroe exclaimed, practically bouncing with excitement. "Those old processors are exactly what we need." I watched in horrified fascination as the human team spread out across the facility. They moved with purpose, like predators stalking prey, except their quarry was our technological refuse. The PAX 890 twins monitored their life signs, convinced the humans would succumb to the sector's harsh conditions. Instead, they seemed to thrive in the chaos. "Kyle R3N," called out Lieutenant Dex Kieran, one of the younger humans. "Come look at this beauty." He stood proudly next to a discarded quantum fluctuation dampener. The device had been decommissioned 3 cycles ago after its crystal matrix degraded beyond repair. "That unit is non-functional," I stated flatly. "The crystal matrix." "Oh, we do not need the crystal matrix," Kieran said, already working to disconnect the outer casing. "These power coupling joints, though, pure gold mine." Yet I made a note in my observation log. Humans appear to lack basic understanding of essential components. Further study needed to determine if this is willful ignorance or genuine incompetence. Captain Hayes approached carrying what appeared to be a twisted heap of metal. "Hey, Doc, what's the story with this thing? Looks like it could be a backup generator housing." "That is a destroyed food replication unit," I corrected, my plumage bristling. "It was damaged in a power surge last cycle." "Even better." Hayes grinned that unsettling expression that showed too many teeth. "The containment field generators in these things are perfect for stabilizing small-scale plasma reactions." My third eye began to throb. "That is not how containment fields work." "Not how they're supposed to work," Chief Monroe corrected, joining us with her arms full of corroded pipes. "But if you reverse the polarity and run it through a modified game console, you cannot keep solving engineering problems by reversing polarity and using game consoles," I exclaimed, my professional demeanor finally cracking. The humans exchanged looks. "Why not?" they asked in unison. Nex 113 appeared at my side, her sensors whirring in distress. "Doctor, they are dismantling everything, and they keep talking about something called duct tape." When I watched as the humans continued their scavenging, they moved with surprising efficiency, creating organized piles of what they deemed useful. Their classification system defied all logic. A pile labeled "probably important" sat next to another marked "definitely not explosive." Most concerning was the largest pile, labeled simply "Trust me, I have an idea." "This is incredible," Engineer Monroe called out, emerging from inside a derelict waste processing unit. Her environmental suit was covered in grease, and she clutched a handful of burnt-out circuit boards like precious gems. "The way you guys designed these neural pathways, if we reconfigure them to run in parallel with our quantum matrix, we could increase efficiency by at least 60%. "That is mathematically impossible," I stated. "Impossible is just another word for Not trying hard enough with sufficient amounts of coffee, Monroe replied, stuffing the circuits into her collection bag. As the day progressed, my observation log grew increasingly incoherent. The humans had amassed a collection of parts that any rational being would classify as worthless, yet they handled each piece with reverence, discussing modifications and potential uses that violated at least 3 Bate laws of physics. Dr. Nex 113 whispered, her voice modulator pitched high with concern. "Should we stop them? This cannot be safe." And I watched as Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Kieran attempted to load what appeared to be an entire discarded engine cooling system onto their transport vehicle. The system was clearly too large, yet they persisted, discussing angles and something called pivot points. "No," I replied, making another note in my log. "I believe we are witnessing something unprecedented." The humans had turned our disposal facility into what they called a gold mine. Though no precious metals were present, their excitement suggested they had found something far more valuable. Their methods were chaotic, their theories were unsound, and their enthusiasm was frankly alarming. Yet as I watched them work, I felt something shift in my scientific understanding. These humans were either brilliant or insane, possibly both. And for the first time since their arrival, I began to wonder if perhaps we had underestimated them. Unfortunately, I had no idea just how drastically I had underestimated their capabilities. The scrapyard was just the beginning. The construction bay of Beta 9 had never seen such activity, or such blatant disregard for standard safety protocols. The humans had transformed our pristine facility into what they called a workshop, though war zone might be a more accurate description. "Captain Hayes," I called out, my voice modulator crackling with stress. "You cannot simply attach a quantum accelerator to a repurposed food replicator." "Watch me," Hayes replied, wielding something they called a welding torch. The captain worked with surprising precision, joining components that had no business being connected. Behind them, Chief Engineer Monroe was programming their game console turned quantum computer, while Lieutenant Kieran appeared to be rebuilding an entire propulsion system using spare parts from 3 different species technologies. The news of the humans' project spread quickly through the station. Soon we had visitors from various scientific delegations, all eager to witness what they assumed would be a spectacular failure. Dr. KLR3N called out Ambassador Solari of the Centaurian Science Council, their crystalline forms shimmering with barely contained amusement. "I heard you are allowing humans to conduct experiments in your facility. Surely this is some sort of sociological study." Before I could respond, a loud bang echoed through the construction bay, followed by human cheering. Engineer Monroe emerged from beneath their contraption, her face covered in what appeared to be engine coolant. "It works," she exclaimed. "The quantum matrix is stable at 47% capacity." "That is not possible," Ambassador Solari stated flatly. "The components you are using are not compatible. The energy patterns alone would cause a catastrophic failure." "Not if you run them through a modified game console," Kieran chimed in, not looking up from his calculations. The humans had covered an entire wall with what they called a whiteboard, filled with mathematical equations that somehow combined advanced quantum mechanics with references to something called Mario Kart. The Arcturian delegation arrived next, their hovering observation platforms clustering around the construction area. "Fascinating, Prof," Kalomir commented, all 7 of his eyes blinking in sequence. "They appear to be attempting to build a functional starship from refuse. How quaint." I watched as the humans continued their work, their methods becoming increasingly bizarre, yet undeniably effective. They had developed their own terminology that made absolutely no sense to any trained engineer. "Hand me the quantum spanner," Monroe called out. "The what?" Kieran asked, sorting through their toolbox. "The thing that looks like a hamburger." "Oh, right. I made another note in my log. Humans have apparently renamed all tools based on Earth food items. Reason unclear. Possibly hunger-induced delirium." The growing audience of alien scientists provided a constant commentary of disapproval and predictions of failure. Yet the humans remained unfazed, even cheerful in the face of such skepticism. "You realize," began Dr. Virtal of the Vegan Science Academy, "that your approach to quantum field manipulation violates at least 15 established laws of physics?" "Only 15? Hayes grinned, adjusting something they called a flux capacitor, which appeared to be made from an old beverage dispenser and 3 gaming controllers. "We must be getting better at this. Last project broke at least 20. The construction continued at a pace that defied conventional project management theories. The humans worked in shifts, powered by their mysterious coffee substance and something they called energy drinks. I had to admit their progress was remarkable, even if their methods were completely insane. Dr. Zaks, Nex 113 reported, her sensors whirring anxiously. "They have begun integrating the salvaged atmospheric processors into the ship's life support systems, but they have replaced all the control circuits with something called Arduino boards." I watched as the humans tested their hybrid systems. Against all logic, against every principle of proper engineering, the cobbled-together components functioned. Not only functioned, but exceeded standard efficiency ratings. "This is preposterous," declared Commissioner Helix of the Galactic Engineering Board. "Their power distribution system appears to be controlled by a modified entertainment system." "PlayStation 5, Monroe corrected proudly. "Overclocked and water-cooled. You would not believe how well it handles quantum calculations when you unlock the developer mode." The ship took shape before our eyes, a testament to human stubbornness and innovation. It was neither sleek nor elegant like our vessels. Instead, it possessed a rough industrial beauty, each piece of salvage transformed into something new and purposeful. "They cannot seriously intend to fly this contraption," Ambassador Solari commented, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Oh, we are absolutely going to fly it," Hayes assured them, patting the hull affectionately. "We are going to show you exactly what humans can do with a pile of scrap and a whole lot of determination." The final phases of construction brought even more skepticism. The humans had installed what they called an emergency backup system, which consisted of precisely measured applications of duct tape and something they referred to as WD-40. "The duct tape is for things that move but should not," Kieran explained to a horrified group of alien engineers. "The WD-40 is for things that should move but do not." "That is not how spacecraft maintenance works," Professor Kalomir exclaimed, all 7 eyes wide with horror. "Maybe not where you come from," Monroe replied with a wink, adding another layer of duct tape to a particularly important-looking junction. As the project neared completion, I found myself torn between professional skepticism and grudging admiration. The humans had taken our discarded technology and created something entirely new, something that, by all standard scientific principles, should not work. Yet, there it stood in our construction bay, a fully formed starship built from scrap, powered by gaming consoles, and held together with equal parts advanced quantum engineering and what humans called crazy glue. The real test, of course, would be whether this improbable vessel could actually fly. The entire station waited with a mixture of dread and anticipation for the upcoming test flight. Some began taking bets on the most likely type of catastrophic failure, but looking at the confident faces of our human guests, I began to wonder if perhaps we were about to witness something unprecedented in the history of galactic engineering. Either that, or the most spectacular explosion ever recorded in this sector of space. The day of the test flight arrived with what the humans called perfect timing, and what every other species on Beta 9 classified as an imminent disaster. Our safety protocols typically required 3 months of pre-launch checks. The humans planned to do it in 3 hours. "Captain Hayes," I began, my voice modulator struggling to maintain a calm frequency. "Our standard pre-flight checklist has 2,947 items." "Cool," Hayes replied, sipping their 7th cup of coffee. "We have got our own checklist. Much shorter, very efficient." I glanced at their checklist displayed on a cracked tablet screen. 1. Does it power up? 2. Do the lights blink? 3. Is anything on fire that should not be? 4. Did we remember to install the bathroom? "This is not a proper pre-flight checklist," I exclaimed, my plumage puffing up in distress. "Added a 5th item just for you, Doc." Hayes grinned, typing on the tablet. 5. Did we annoy Dr. Zax enough to make their feathers fluff up? The launch bay buzzed with activity as final preparations began. The safety board representatives huddled in a corner, their tentacles tangled in anxiety as they watched the humans work. "They are calibrating the quantum drive using a gaming controller," one inspector whispered in horror. "A gaming controller?" "Actually," Lieutenant Kieran corrected, overhearing them, "it is 3 gaming controllers duct-taped together. Better range of motion that way." Chief Engineer Monroe emerged from the engine room, covered in various fluids that our sensors could not quite identify. "Good news and bad news," she announced. "Good news, the quantum flux is stable at 142% efficiency." "That is impossible," Professor Kalomir interjected, all 7 eyes blinking rapidly. "Bad news," Monroe continued, ignoring the interruption. "We are out of duct tape." The entire launch bay fell silent. Even I had learned enough about human engineering to understand the gravity of this situation. "No problem," Hayes declared, reaching into their pocket. "I always carry a spare roll for emergencies." The safety board representatives began drafting their resignation letters. As launch time approached, more modifications were apparently needed. The humans darted around their vessel, making last-minute adjustments that defied both physics and common sense. "The quantum harmonics are a bit off," Kieran announced, studying a device that appeared to be a modified toaster. "We need to adjust the resonance frequency." "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Monroe suggested. To everyone's horror, this actually worked. The station's medical team insisted on conducting pre-flight health screenings, a standard procedure that quickly turned bizarre. "Your adrenaline levels are dangerously high," the medical officer reported, analyzing the crew's readings. "And these caffeine concentrations cannot be right." "Do not worry," Hayes assured them. "Those are our normal operating levels." The final hour before launch brought even more chaos. The humans insisted on adding what they called lucky charms to the ship. Engineer Monroe hung fuzzy dice in the cockpit. Lieutenant Kieran installed something called a bobblehead on the dashboard. Captain Hayes placed a small plastic tree air freshener next to the quantum drive controls. "The air freshener is essential," Hayes explained to my bewildered staff. It is new car scent. Every new ship needs new car scent. Ambassador Solari arrived with a team of quantum physics experts, all intent on conducting last-minute calculations to predict the exact nature of the impending catastrophe. According to our models, the lead physicist announced, "Your ship has a 99.9% chance of catastrophic failure, so you are saying there is a 0.1% chance of success?" Monroe grinned. "Those are better odds than my college finals, and I passed those." The launch countdown began, though not in any way that followed proper procedure. The humans had programmed their ship's computer to announce the countdown using something called movie quotes. "Dr. Zax, 427, VIX 299, Vix whispered, her sensors nearly overloading from stress. "Should we evacuate the station?" I watched as the humans completed their final preparations. They moved with absolute confidence, completely unfazed by the dire predictions surrounding them. Captain Hayes sat in the pilot's seat, adjusting controls that looked suspiciously like arcade machine parts. Engineer Monroe hummed something called Top Gun theme music while running final system checks. Lieutenant Kieran finished applying the last piece of duct tape to what he assured everyone was not an essential system. "Probably." "No," I replied to VIX 299, surprising myself. "I believe we need to witness this." The observation deck filled with spectators from every scientific discipline. Some came to document what they assumed would be a cautionary tale about human recklessness. Others arrived out of morbid curiosity. A few, though they would never admit it, came because they had begun to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, these humans knew something we did not. "Final pre-flight checks complete," Monroe announced. "All systems are green, or at least greenish. Maybe more of a yellowish green in a few spots, but definitely not red. Close enough for government work," Hayes declared, another human phrase that sent shivers through the safety board representatives. As the launch sequence initiated, I made my final observation note. Either we are about to witness the most remarkable achievement in improvisational engineering, or we are about to learn exactly how many safety regulations can be violated in a single moment. The humans, naturally, remained perfectly calm. In fact, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Hey, Doc," Hayes called out, flashing that unnervingly confident grin. "Want to see something cool?" The launch countdown began with what the humans called dramatic flair. Their ship's computer, voiced by something called glottos, started the sequence. "T-minus 60 seconds until probable destruction," the computer announced cheerfully. "All personnel should update their last will and testament now." The observation deck fell silent, except for the sound of various alien species updating their insurance policies. The safety board representatives had taken refuge behind a reinforced blast shield, peeking out through specialized radiation-proof viewers. "T-minus 30 seconds," the computer continued. "Quantum drive powering up, or possibly preparing to explode. The odds are about 50-50 at this point." Captain Hayes sat at the controls, looking impossibly relaxed for someone about to pilot a ship held together by spare parts and optimism. Engineer Monroe monitored her wall of jerry-rigged displays, each cobbled together from salvaged screens and gaming devices. Lieutenant Kieran kept his hand on what he called the emergency backup system, which appeared to be a large red button labeled Plan Z. "T-minus 15 seconds, shield generators online. Warning, shields are operating at 160% capacity, which should be impossible. Good job breaking physics, humans." The ship's engines hummed to life, a sound that somehow combined the roar of a quantum drive with what suspiciously resembled a game console startup tune. The deck plates vibrated at a frequency that made my feathers stand on end. 10 seconds, 9, 8. Ambassador Krylix's crystalline form vibrated with anxiety. They cannot seriously. 7, 6, 5. Prof. Calomir's 7 eyes blinked in perfect synchronization with the countdown. 4, 3, 2. I held my breath, a habit I had apparently picked up from the humans. 1. Ignition. Please keep all tentacles, appendages, and existential doubts inside the observation deck. The ship's engines flared to life. The quantum drive, that impossible combination of salvaged parts and reversed polarities, began to glow with an energy signature that made our sensors short-circuit. The gaming console turned quantum computer let out a cheerful ding, like it had just finished loading a save file. And then, breaking every law of physics that our civilization held sacred, the ship rose smoothly from the launch pad. "Would you look at that?" Hayes's voice crackled over the comm. No explosions yet. The vessel moved with a grace that should have been impossible, given its construction. The quantum field readings were off the scale, yet somehow stable. The shield harmonics, generated by what used to be a food replicator, created a perfect bubble of protected space. "Beginning maneuverability tests," Hayes announced, and proceeded to put the ship through a series of turns and rolls that made several alien observers lose their lunch in various species-specific ways. "That is not possible," Professor Calomir whispered, all 7 eyes wide with disbelief. "They cannot achieve that level of control with salvaged parts." "Quantum drive engaging," Monroe reported, running at 180% efficiency, because why not? Breaking the laws of physics is kind of our thing. The ship accelerated, pushing beyond speeds that our engineers had declared impossible for such a cobbled-together vessel. The observation deck erupted in chaos as various scientific instruments either overloaded or simply gave up trying to measure what they were seeing. "Preparing for quantum jump," Hayes announced. "Hey Doc, watch this." Before anyone could protest, before the safety board could even finish drafting their strongly worded objection, the ship vanished in a flash of light that somehow included rainbow colors and what sounded like the victory music from an old video game. 3 seconds later, it reappeared on the other side of the station. "Quantum jump successful," Kieran reported. "Also, the quantum matrix is now running at 200% efficiency. We have no idea why, but it seems happy about it." The ship landed as gracefully as it had taken off, settling onto the pad with a soft hiss of hydraulics. Steam rose from various vents, carrying the distinct scent of new car air freshener mixed with quantum plasma. As the engines powered down, the observation deck remained absolutely silent. Every alien scientist, engineer, and observer stood frozen, their various biological processes temporarily suspended by sheer disbelief. The ship's hatch opened, and the human crew emerged, looking exactly as casual as they had before the launch. "So," Hayes called out, addressing the stunned crowd. "Anyone else hungry? Test flights always make me crave pizza." The silence broke. The observation deck exploded into a cacophony of voices, questions, and demands for explanations. How had they achieved quantum stability with gaming hardware? Why did the shields work better when powered by a modified food replicator? What exactly was the purpose of the lucky fuzzy dice? Most importantly, why had it worked at all? I stared at my final observation notes, which had devolved into a series of exclamation points and question marks. Everything we thought we knew about engineering, about the proper way to build and test spacecraft, had just been turned upside down by a group of humans who treated the laws of physics more like polite suggestions. "Hey Doc," Hayes approached, still wearing that infectious grin. "Want to help us install some upgrades?" We have got some great ideas involving a toaster oven and 3 vending machine power supplies. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change the course of galactic engineering forever. I agreed. After all, I still had that spare roll of duct tape in my office. Report date, solar cycle 7249.7. Location, Beitan Nisin Research Station. Subject, final observations on human engineering capabilities. The success of the human test flight sent shockwaves through the galactic scientific community, literally in fact, as their quantum drive harmonics had created a previously unknown form of subspace ripple that 3 different research teams were now studying with great interest. I sat in my office staring at the mountain of reports, queries, and research proposals cluttering my desk. The Galactic Engineering Board had sent 17 urgent messages demanding explanations for what they called violations of fundamental physics. The Quantum Sciences Council requested detailed analysis of how a gaming console could possibly handle quantum calculations. The Safety Board had simply sent a message consisting entirely of question marks. Dr. Kyle R3N Nex 113 entered, her sensors still slightly fritzy from the launch. The humans are requesting permission to start another project. What could they possibly want to build now? I asked, already dreading the answer. They say they can upgrade our station's entire power grid using something called solar panels, 6 washing machines, and a microwave. I should have said no. I should have cited regulations, demanded proper procedures, insisted on standard safety protocols. Instead, I found myself asking, how many rolls of duct tape will they need? The changes in Beitan 9 were more than just technological. The various alien species stationed here had begun to approach problems differently. Yesterday, I caught one of the PAX 890 twins trying to fix a malfunctioning food replicator by, as the humans would say, giving it a good whack. Professor Calomier had started carrying a roll of duct tape in his robes, though he would deny it if asked. Ambassador Krylix had been spotted in the engineering bay studying human repair techniques with poorly concealed fascination. Even the Safety Board representatives had evolved. They still documented every violation of standard procedures, but now they added notes like, interesting approach and potential applications under certain, very specific, and completely hypothetical circumstances. "You know what your problem was, Doc?" Captain Hayes said during one of our now regular coffee breaks. I had developed a taste for the bitter human beverage, though I suspected it was slowly turning my internal organs into quantum particles. "Only one problem," I replied, my sense of humor having developed a distinctly human sarcasm. "You all got so caught up in doing things the right way that you forgot to ask if there might be a better way," Hayes explained, retrieving a fresh roll of duct tape from what seemed like thin air. "Sometimes the best solution is not the prettiest or the most proper. Sometimes you just need to grab whatever works and make it work better." Looking around my station, I could not argue with the results. Human innovation had transformed Beitan 9 into what they called a proper workspace. Our efficiency had increased by 47%, even if our adherence to safety protocols had decreased by roughly the same margin. The humans had taught us something fundamental about progress. It does not always come in neat, properly documented packages. Sometimes it arrives in a heap of scrap metal held together with duct tape and optimism, powered by gaming consoles and coffee. The Galactic Federation had always prided itself on its methodical, careful approach to technological advancement. We had countless procedures, endless safety checks, and proper protocols for everything. And yes, this approach had served us well, leading to steady, predictable progress. But the humans, they showed us that sometimes you need to throw out the manual, grab whatever tools are at hand, and just try something new. Their method was chaotic, often terrifying, and surprisingly effective. Final log entry, I dictated as I watched the humans start their new power grid project. Previous assessment of human technological capabilities was fundamentally flawed. Their strength lies not in following established principles, but in their ability to ignore them completely when necessary. Their engineering style, while unorthodox, demonstrates a creativity and adaptability that our civilization would do well to study. Through my office window, I could see Engineer Monroe explaining to a group of young alien scientists how to repurpose a games console into what she called a totally safe and only slightly explosive power regulator. Lieutenant Kieran was teaching another group the proper application angles for duct tape in zero gravity. Captain Hayes stood in the middle of it all, that characteristic human grin on their face, already planning the next impossible project. In conclusion, I continued my log. I hereby recommend that the Galactic Federation establish a permanent human engineering consultation program, though I do suggest we maintain a safe distance and stock up on fire suppression equipment. And duct tape. Lots of duct tape. And as I finished my report, the station lights flickered, then brightened to what the humans called optimal levels. The new power grid was online, running at 180% efficiency, powered by an impossible combination of alien technology and Earth appliances, and somewhere in the background, a gaming console played its victory tune. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would we. End report. P.S. Note to self. Order more coffee and maybe some antacids.